I'm really happy that you stopped on by because that means that you gave yourself a break, a little distraction from your everyday life. Um, and this is a special reaction. This is unique for me because we've done a few what we call reaction interviews, which is us reacting to someone being interviewed. Um, but this isn't an interview. This is just one man, one person that we know and love talking about his personal life, Ren. Um, and I'm a lover of Ren and his music and himself as a human being, just like you are if you're watching this. So I'm gonna call this reaction mini series because I plan to react to all the chapters. I think he has 8 chapters. Um, talking about himself and different things. I haven't seen any of them yet, so I don't know the whole gamut of what he covers. But I know that these are special, and I know that this is my way of respecting Ren and gaining him more exposure, notoriety, and also to hopefully healing others because everything he says and does heals and helps us in so many different ways. Okay, so I want you to stay tuned. So this is chapter 1, and this is a reaction mini series, I'm going to call it. I want to also give a special thanks and shout out to the person who made me aware of this because I actually did not know that Ren had these chapters, and on one of his other channels, Ren Makes Stuff. So I didn't even know about it. So someone said in one of his music reactions that we did, and he alerted me of this. So special shout out and love to at Ms. Chris 46, which that'll be showing on the screen. I hope that they see this, and I hope that you all know. So we always like to give credit where credit is due. So thank you, Ms. Chris 46, for making me aware of this. Because, like I said, I want to gain him more exposure, notoriety, and also I want us to learn and heal and become even more in tune with Ren and people like Ren as far as personal things that they've gone through. Okay. So thanks so much. And I want you to ask yourself in the comments, what is it about Ren that you like? I know there's many things that he is known for and loved for, but I want to know what is one thing, at least one thing that you like about Ren. Okay, so without further ado, let's get into this and talk about it a little bit later if you stay tuned. At the end, our final thoughts and so forth. So here we go.
Hello everyone. This is the first time I've done something like this before. I wanted to write it down because there's a lot and I didn't want to miss anything. And some parts of this might be a little bit uncomfortable to listen to, but I wanted to stay as true as possible to the story, not miss anything, for the sake of people who might be going through something similar, or for the sake of people who don't but want to help understand a little bit more. Yeah. I promise that everything in this story is 100% true. Nothing is exaggerated for dramatic effect. Some names I don't mention and some details I don't go too far into or downplay them for the sake of the people around me. Timelines might occasionally be a little bit off, but that's just because I've had to write everything from memory from a time that was quite hazy. I asked before embarking on this journey with me that you all respect the privacy of myself and the people around me. You might be compelled to reach out to some of the people that I mention, cast judgment, praise them, criticize them, and I ask you kindly not to. It's my choice to be in the public eye, and it's mine alone. This is the first time my story is on the public record in a concise way. Being in the public eye is strange. The more that I give to you, the less that I get to keep for myself. I don't find the
Let me first say right here, like this is only, what is it? A minute and 19 seconds in, and I just love him already even more so because he's so humble and thoughtful, and he prepares you in situations of what you're about to expect, and he's letting you know he wrote things down, and then he admits that some of these things are going to be uncomfortable. So extra mad respect for somebody, especially somebody in the public eye, who willingly gives you and shows you their personal life and that makes them just so vulnerable. So it's listen. It's hard. Ask yourself this: it's hard for some of us to tell personal things of our lives, just about just with people around us, even family and friends, let alone voicing it for all the world to see. Um, but it's a healing thing. A lot of things are healing, and I know a lot for him is healing for himself. It heals us. It educates us. It hopefully motivates us. Some things that he says, and makes us aware of things that we should know that maybe we don't know. So just mad props to him already. Everything he's saying. So I know this is going to be difficult for him, but I'm glad that he's doing it. Because, like I said, it's healing, and it's some things you don't necessarily want to bottle up inside, especially if it's been going on for a while. All right, so let's get back into it, okay?
Experience of sharing particularly enjoyable. I don't so much like the questions that follow. And I'm not a medical expert, so I don't like to be seen as somebody with all the answers, because I don't have them. And because of the empathy that I feel, I'm compelled to try and help as many people as possible. But the last time I opened myself up to this on a one-on-one basis, I was surrounded by a lot of death. And there simply weren't enough hours in the day. So I ask you, if you need support, please reach out to a professional or use my music as your companion. I share my story in hopes that somebody who needs it finds it, that it provides hope, that it might ease the suffering for the people like me. I like my solitude, so I ask that anyone who respects the work I make and respects my contribution to the world to respect my solitude. A lot happened in my teenage years, and I didn't live the most normal of lives, but I'll save that story for another time. The important thing to contextualize this story is that I was full of life. I was full of a burning desire to change the world. The flaws in how we interact seemed obvious to me. I believed in people's power to change the unnecessary suffering we inflict upon ourselves. I was also enamored with music. Music is the closest thing to God that I have. It's a gateway to the unexplainable, and it's a way of communicating the inexpressible. Just one moment I want to share with you from the years before I got sick. I was 17 and I felt indestructible. I'm not sure why, but my whole life I had this feeling inside myself that I was meant to do something important, not for myself, not for praise, not for personal gain, but something that would change the world for the better. It's hard to describe it without coming across like an egomaniac or having some sort of God complex, but I felt like I had some sort of divine purpose. And I remember feeling this so strongly that one afternoon after school, I stood in the center of my bedroom and I spoke loud into an empty void. I said that I would single-handedly take on and defeat the forces of evil, and I welcomed them to try their best. Throughout the years, that memory stuck with me, taunting me sometimes. Flash forward to 2019. I remember the first day I knew something was wrong very well. I woke up in an unfamiliar room in Cardiff, feeling like a raven had perched itself upon my heart. Every time my heart beat, it's like some part of me was aware of the foreboding death sentence that was to come. Some sort of primal instinctive dread. Everything felt wrong, and I felt prosthetic, like I could tear my own skin off and observe, though I was watching passively from another room. The night before, I'd been in Cardiff visiting friends in university. It was the end of summer, we'd gone out to a few bars. I wasn't really enjoying myself. That year I'd been struggling with social anxiety, perhaps from years of abusing my brain with a whole pick and mix and selection of party drugs. Engaging with society felt like stepping into the ring with a heavyweight champion. Every single fucking question felt like an oncoming haymaker I had to socially navigate because of my very limited toolkit of charisma at the time. I don't know why I cared about being liked so much, but the more I cared, the less equipped I became to have a simple human conversation. I used to deal with this by getting fucking hammered. That night was no exception. I got smashed, lost my phone, and woke up in a strange apartment. In the bed opposite mine was a snoring rugby player and his girlfriend. Everything just seemed off, and it wasn't a hangover. My first thought was,
This is very deep. It's getting very raw and visceral, and he's talking about some scary times. Like, it's scary times if you wake up not knowing where the heck you are and like blacking out and things like that. So, because that's a scary thing. You could wake up on the side of a road and not even remember driving. You know what I mean? So, again, it's healing, and sometimes in this particular moment, it's like an aha moment to anybody out there that might drink crazy and have a lot of party drugs. Maybe this is something that you'll hear and say, "Wow, I need to stop that." And something else I just felt, just me personally. Let me know if you felt the same way. Each time he turns the page, I feel this tension. because I know that this is difficult for him to talk about. So it's like each page gives you a few seconds to think about, oh God, here comes another page of me telling my life. So that's what I got. And since his microphone's right there, like the turning of that page just sounds loud, like that da da da. Which again just really gets you into the feeling of this. Because I'm engaged and I feel bad for him, and wish that he had, like, I guess, a stronger support system back then when he was doing what he was doing. But again, sometimes people need to learn from their mistakes to get better, and obviously he did. Um, but still, something could have turned completely sideways back then. Like I said, when you drink a lot or whatever, or you take party drugs, you don't know what the heck can happen. It's like a roll of the dice. So anyway, let's get back into this. Very interesting, heartfelt so far.
As I'd been spiked, I quietly gathered all my belongings and left before anyone could wake up and punch me with a conversation. I wandered around a grey Cardiff in a haze, feeling like I've just been rigged up to an IV bag full of ketamine and cyanide, and the whole world just seemed off, like I was looking at it through a tunnel. A heavy feeling of fear clung around me like a straitjacket. The only comforting thought was that with enough time, rest and water, it would pass. But it didn't. For 8 long years, it didn't. And this is my story of an 8-year-long nightmare. I returned back to my dad's home. He was living with his partner at the time. It wasn't my home, so I already felt uncomfortable and out of place. These unusual symptoms persisted. I figured I'd caught some sort of virus and I'd get better with time. But by the end of the week, things were a lot worse. I took myself to the doctor and he said he thought it sounded viral, that if I went home and got enough rest, it would eventually pass. And it didn't. For 8 years, it didn't. I returned for my second year of university. My brain was full of fog and my body felt poisoned. There were intermittent days where I felt like a hollow suit of skin. I'd sit in lectures unable to focus and was devoid of any sort of personality. I'd be able to have basic conversations, yeses and nos, but I was stripped of the ability to think spontaneously. It's like my body was taking up so much processing power being sick that I could not have original or spontaneous thought. The most peculiar thing about this was there was a me that was aware that this was all happening and was observing it from outside of myself, locked out, screaming silently, banging on the walls of my mind to be let in, and never successfully. And nonetheless, there I was, like a ghost haunting myself. My usual routine was getting home, running a shower and curling up into a ball to cry underneath the running water, not understanding what was going on. I brought myself to the doctors numerous times during this period, requesting every blood test they'd let me have, often being...
I can't help but feel for him as he's reading this because, as he's reading this, the memories and stuff are coming back in his head. He's essentially reliving this all over again. So, since I care about him so much as a human being and as a professional in his craft and a love for his craft, I just can't help to feel like I'm in the room there with him, wanting to like console and pat him on the back to say it's okay, like as he's reading all of this stuff, and again it's going back into his brain and he's reliving it. So I'm sure many of you can understand and relate to that, but at the same time, again, it's healing for all of us and himself mainly to release this and to learn from this and stuff like that. So let's get back into this, okay?
Dismissed and told things like stress from university can cause strange symptoms. But how come no one I knew in university could relate to this? Eventually, I was put on a 6-month-long waiting list to see a mental health specialist who did a short 1-page questionnaire and wrongly diagnosed me as hypercycling bipolar and put me on a course of citalopram. After a few weeks, it stole my ability to sleep. I was told to stick it out and it would level out and eventually I'd feel more like myself. I stuck it out and I got worse, and I pulled myself off it after 2 weeks in a row of sleepless nights and insomnia. There's something pretty peculiar about being told you're in some sort of spectrum of madness. Even if you suspect that you're mad, your diagnosis finds a way to claw itself into your identity even if it doesn't belong to you. Ever since I was a child, I'd always be asking what and why and how things worked. I couldn't really accept things as they were without knowing how. I carried into my adult years, and so as the bipolar hammer crashed and sentenced itself into my reality, I began searching online for behaviours associated with it, people's first-hand experiences, what it felt like to be manic. In these earlier days of my illness, the symptoms would fluctuate in severity day by day. Some days I'd be in a thick, tired fog, and other days they'd be more merciful. I began to associate the days of not suffering as mania and would act more erratically on the days that my symptoms were less bothersome. I did things like climbing out of windows of a 6-story student accommodation or get so drunk I'd wake up outside of the university campus lawn. But it wasn't mania. I just wasn't hurting. I spent 1 day a week with my therapist, who was teaching me cognitive behavioral therapy.
I just got like a chill up my back when I heard that part. Like real talk, like climbing out of high story windows, waking up, you know, with no sense of how the hell you got there. These are all scary things. And fun fact was not a fun fact about me. There was one time I have a great resistance to drinking. But there was this one time on New Year's Eve, several years ago, maybe 25 years ago, I drank so much because I was combining all these things. So I remember I combined Zambuca with some type of German vodka or something like that. And I woke up the next day not knowing how I got there. But here's the thing. I woke up on the 3rd floor of a 3-story house. And I don't know how I got there. And I'm a big guy. So like nobody could carry me that I think. And I don't remember walking up there. So that's just scary. Again, waking up not knowing how the hell you got there. I'm saying this because like in his case, even in my case, anything could have happened at that time when you were blacked out. You could have been blacked out while you're crossing a street not knowing what the heck's going on, and someone could have hit you or something. Something could have finished your existence is where I'm getting at. So hearing him saying that he was climbing out of windows, he could have fallen. That it would have been the end of him. There would be no REN. Or so that's what entered my head when he said that part, and I got a chill up my back. It's just a scary situation. With anybody involved, that's a scary situation. But more with REN right now, because us as fans and supporters of him are so in tune to him, and we cheer him on and we rally him on and wish him the best. Hearing that he could not even be here right now from some of the shenanigans that he did in younger years. So it's just scary. But at the same time, that was stemming a lot from his misdiagnosis and stuff, and them saying things that affect the mentalities and stuff that could have led in those directions. So it's a scary, scary thing. Let us know your thoughts in the comments. All right, let's get back to it.
The issue was, mentally reframing unexplainable symptoms caused a lot of cognitive dissonance for me. I was told my anxiety or depression was causing my symptoms, but in reality it was my symptoms which were making me anxious and depressed. So I was in some sort of inescapable bind. I'd devotedly work on my mental health, following every new tool for coping to the letter, only to have my symptoms get worse, which made me frustrated, raise the intensity of my treatment, only to get even more frustrated as my body seemed to deteriorate. After 6 months, I told my mum I'd happily saw off my own leg with a blunt knife if it meant my symptoms would vanish, and I meant it. I told her if I had to live with this strange feeling for 1 more year, I'd kill myself, and I meant that too. But something happened that winter which showed me firsthand the horrors and the fallout from suicide. I met Joe when I was 9 years old. I remember the first time clearly. I was standing in his living room and he turned to me and he was like, "Watch this." Then he proceeded to climb on top of his sofa and did a front flip onto a stone living room floor. He landed on his back and lay motionless for a few seconds before grinning, getting up, and then doing it all over again. We grew up terrorising the streets of the small village we grew up in, playing knock door run or breaking into people's gardens to play on their trampolines. We stayed friends throughout high school, going through various phases together. Joe was comedian of the group. I remember countless mornings after messy all-nighters, Joe would be cracking endless jokes like a professional stand-up routine, and we'd all be in tears laughing. When I started writing my first songs, Joe and Sega were the first people who always knew every word, and they would sing along at the top of their lungs. They gave me a lot of self-belief, and they helped me build the foundation of what I do today, and I owe them a lot for that. That Christmas, I came back home to Wales from university. On Christmas Eve, me and Joe were sat in a pub, and he turned to me, and he told me that he'd fantasized about walking into the sea until he was totally submerged. He had a pretty morbid sense of humour, so I didn't really take him as seriously as I should have. 2 days later, it's 3 a.m, and I get a phone call. It's my friend Ella. She tells me that Joe is on the bridge by my house. He was drunk, he'd called her up, and he told her he was going to jump. I was still half asleep. I fumbled, pulling on whatever clothes I could that were near, and I walked out of the front door, and the winter air stung my face, and it woke me up. Adrenaline kicked in, and I started sprinting towards the bridge. It was about a 5-minute walk, a 2.5-minute sprint. As I was running, I dialed Joe's number, and I get a busy tone, and I felt relief because it meant he was still alive. I kept hitting redial as I ran, and as I got about halfway to the bridge, the busy tone changes. I get an automated voice note saying the number's out of service, and my heart sunk. I got to the suspension bridge that connects Anglesey to the mainland, and it usually looks very beautiful. I sprint up and down the bridge yelling Joe's name, and silence, and it's deafening. And I peer over the bridge into the blackness, and the bridge sits about 100 feet above the water. Hitting cold water at that height is like smashing into concrete. And the waters are notoriously dangerous because of the cross current. I hear nothing, no sounds, nothing. I run up and down the bridge about 2 times before I spot a figure at the end of it, and my heart jumps into my throat, and I run towards the figure, and it's my friend Ricky who's had the same call, and we both run around up and down the bridge and around the surrounding area looking for Joe. More of his friends eventually arrive, and there's nothing. I was about a minute too late. We spent the next week walking up and down beaches with flashlights, and when it's that dark, every other large rock starts to look like a washed up body. We plastered all the neighbouring towns in missing posters, contacting whoever we could, someone who might know something. We checked bank records to see if any money had been withdrawn since he went missing. There was CCTV footage of him walking onto the bridge, but there wasn't any of him coming off. But there were dead zones in the footage, so there was still a small chance he could be alive. I was sleeping about 3 hours a night, pretty determined that we'd still find him. For about 10...
I had to stop it there just for a moment. I'm feeling emotions. I'm feeling emotions as he's reading it, and then I'm thinking again about him, who's reliving this all over again. It's just, and you can hear him getting choked up. I mean, it's just like I wish I was there at the time that he did that, to just give him like a big old hug and let him know, like, you're not alone. And I'm sure he knows he's not alone, but again, well, I'm not sure. Like, I shouldn't assume, because some people don't know that, but I feel strongly that he does, because he's, again, lets his heart out on his sleeve here. This brings me to something, because since he's putting that out there, I'm gonna put something out there. Like, he unfortunately, they couldn't find Joe at all, but I have a friend who had passed away, and his name actually was Christian, but unfortunately I found him dead. And I don't know what's worse, finding a friend dead or knowing a friend's dead and you can't find them. I don't know which is worse, but we'll just say they're both equally worse. Um, but he had chronic back pain, like chronic back pain. And sometimes he would say it's so debilitating he couldn't get out of bed. He was a registered nurse. I know he had prescription medication, but he somehow had more medication, and I don't know, like, it's because he was a nurse or whatever that he got more or whatever. I don't know the situation about that. But the point is, I was angry at him for a while because of the fact that we were supposed to hang out on a Saturday, and he said, "Oh, come on over, and then we'll figure out what to do then." So I was going there. I got there, and just like in the movies, you knock on a door and the door unlatches and opens. Now, normally in a situation like that, I'm like, deuces, and I'm out of there. But this is a friend of mine, and I'm supposed to hang out with him. So I open up the door slowly. It was daytime, and I'm calling out his name as I'm walking through his apartment, and I'm like, Christian, Christian, Christian. And I finally get to the bedroom, and he's laying on his stomach peacefully, and it looked initially like he was asleep. So my brain is thinking, damn, he must have partied last night. He's sleeping so hard he forgot I was coming over. So it wasn't until I got there and started nudging him, and I realized that he was gone. Um, so after the initial shock and everything, I was mad because I'm like, why would you do this knowing I was coming over? Like, why do I have to be the one who witnesses this? Um, but then I got over that anger, and then I realized like he just couldn't take it anymore. So now I know that he's at peace and things like that. So I know the feeling of losing a friend tragically, um, unexpectedly. So I can relate to Ren in that sense somewhere, but it still hits you. So I felt Ren's pain as he's choking up, as he's reading that and reliving that again. And again, as he's turning the page, that damn page sounds so loud as to like, here we go with more sadness. But again, it's healing and it heals others. So hopefully, even something that I said helps you or someone that you know along the way. Um, all right, so let's get back to this again, and let's keep supporting Ren.
Days we had nothing, and then suddenly a call comes through while we're all at my friend Miles's house having food. It's the police. A body had been found in the water by the bridge. We piled into my friend's car. I remember being in the back seat in floods of tears, repetitively punching the back of the passenger seat as we drove to the scene. As we pull up, I saw a lifeless body being zipped up into a green bag near a parked ambulance. Its skin was bloated by the seawater, and it wasn't Joe. Someone else decided to jump that day. Joe was never found. It's difficult to truly let go when you can't say goodbye. For months following, I held on to this fantasy that we'd get a call that he'd run away to some European town and he was happy and he was healthy. But that call never came. The time during his inquest was also around the time I was struggling with the side effects of a new antidepressant. I remember sitting in the courtroom feeling like I was listening to the whole thing deep underwater. The judge felt the circumstances surrounding Joe's death didn't mean The judge felt that the circumstances surrounding Joe's death meant that the verdict was left open. It kind of stung even more to not have an official ruling of suicide. I remember going to visit his mum not long after and witnessing the aftermath of a mother grieving for her baby boy. The silence of his father, the tears of his mother. I decided that day that I'd have to wait until my illness killed me because I couldn't do it by choice. I couldn't put my family through that. Over the next 10 years, I returned to my hometown, only a handful of times following Joe's death. My last visit was in the summer of last year. I reconnected with Joe's parents and showed them a song that I'd written, simply entitled For Joe. We cried together, reminisced together, joked, and I'm proud to say that I gave Joe's mum enough money to afford a caravan she told me she'd been saving up for. That felt pretty good. We'd also do a fundraiser for the Royal National Lifeboat Institution, who were integral for searching for Joe during that time, and we raised a pretty good amount of money too. Being able to give back in whatever small way I could felt good, and it felt right for all the years Joe had made us all laugh till it hurt. He was a solid person, just a little lost, as we all are sometimes. And I miss him. Life was about to take an even more unusual turn, and I was about to meet the first angel of this story. So stay tuned for that. It's hard to take off from the ground when your wings are cut. Your stomach burns when you're drinking from an empty cup. You know the entire ocean came from my tear ducts. I see the world through Fibonacci sequences and double Dutch. I guess there's some that's born lucky, there's some that's not. I tried to cut away my bitterness, hatchet job. I locked my youth inside the trunk, inside the pickup truck, then dumped that whole thing over that same bridge the night you jumped. I think about that sometimes, vividly. What it felt like to look down and see tranquility. One sudden movement in a world of possibility. Only one movement to expose our fragility. I fucking fucking miss you. And I miss myself. I miss thinking we were indestructible as hell. I miss chilling by the pier cave and kicking back with Callum, Hugo, Justin, Sega, Stevie and the fucking lads. I miss missing that. I numb myself to close the gap. I never even call them up. Distance is my plaster cast, to tell the truth. The day you jumped, my childhood jumped too. But I still can't find the anger. All I find is missing you, man, I miss you. With all my rhymes, I picture running 5 minutes quicker, I'm right on time. I picture pulling you back over the edge and then we're crying, and holding you, my brother, and telling you that it's fine, not the way that it worked. I was late like a jerk, there's not a day where I can find a way to break from the hurt. Your body missing, so we never got to wave to the hearse. I hope you're listening, I love you, man, I miss you, absurd, fuck. Another domino, it falls. Across the way another's born. How you're supposed to raise a child and give it courage from a storm. In a world that is confusing, contradictions pave our flaws. Some will say we're only human, others judge us for our flaws. Some get born in sheets of satin, some get by in tattered clothes. Some will die before they live, that's just how the story goes. But for those of us still with us, who reside inside our hearts, tell them proudly how you feel. And for those of us who aren't, freckled angels stand strong, freckled angels live on, freckled angels climb higher, freckled angels still inspire, freckled angels won't forget you, teach me to live my life better. 13 years and still I miss you, now my wings are missing feather. Otherwise I'd come and join you, but for now I'm here on earth, stuck inside this mortal body. But for everything it's worth, made me braver, made me wiser, made me stronger, made me true, made me face the world with courage, and that's all because of you. Freckled angels laugh the hardest, and their hearts, they are the largest. With their wings they fly the farthest, so I know you're gonna be okay. Freckled angels live the longest, and their minds, they are the strongest. Oh, their friends, they are the fondest, so I know you're gonna be okay.
Boy, that was a lot to unfold. That was a lot. And I'm very good at putting myself in other people's shoes. Um, you should all be good at that too, or at least you should try moving forward to do that, because there's times in life where I think it's important if you have the ability to put yourself in other people's shoes so you can understand where they're coming from, whether it's understanding their pain or understanding just their day-to-day thinking. Because we are not all clones, and we don't all think the same. We don't all grieve the same. We don't all do our jobs the same. We don't all deal with all types of emotions and situations in life the same. So sometimes you have to step back, put yourself mentally in someone else's shoes, because that's a saying. If that's not something that maybe you might know around the world, that means just put yourself thinking, if you can, like the other person, to get maybe an understanding of why they're doing something or whatever. So since I've been through pain, and I had mentioned it throughout, like, that was one of the things that I've dealt with. But then I put myself in Ren's shoes. Like, again, this entire chapter 1, as he's reading it, he's reliving it, and I could put myself in his shoes and feel the pain that he's having mentally and physically from it. And a lot of his life has changed and molded into the passing of his friend Joe. He runs faster, as he says, proverbially runs faster to get to places on time. Him and I think he mentioned his friend Sager were part of the foundation of how Ren handles like his music career and other things in his life. So you'd be surprised how people are part of your world and then they become part of you, your thought processes and stuff. He did mention in there, as he said, how harder it is to say goodbye since he wasn't able to see Joe. So he answered my question when I had mentioned I didn't know which is worse in my situation, finding one of my good friends dead, or in his case, not finding him. So it is worse when you don't find him because there's no sense of actual closure. Um, so I can understand that now. So he's giving me a perspective on that. So, and again, I put myself in his shoes, like, okay, yeah, if I didn't know, if I went to Christian's house, my friend, and he wasn't there, and I never heard from him again, like, I definitely can understand, like, oh my God, you have this thing keep rolling around in your head. There's no closure. What happened? Where is he? I need to visually see. So it's a lot. There's a lot you can learn from this chapter one. Again, Ren not only heals himself and learns from things and stuff like that, we all learn from it and heal from things like that. So again, I applaud Ren so much for doing what he does, because he doesn't have to do this. He can internalize all this, or he can just vent and talk about things with a small circle of friends or family. But he chose to voice this out for all the world to see. And I applaud him for that. I know it was difficult, um, but we appreciate that because we are not perfect people. We are flawed people in so many ways. We have all different types of struggles and things like that. And we can learn and heal from hearing other people. We don't all singularly have the answers and solutions ourselves. So I thank him for that. This was bittersweet, because it's sweet and endearing to hear his childhood and his friends and his mentality and things like that. But of course, it's bitter because of the sadnesses, that's a word, that has happened in his life, either himself personally or from others that has been in his life. So let us know your thoughts. Let us know how you felt about this. Again, this purpose of this reaction mini series is to help gain more exposure and notoriety to Ren, and to hopefully all of you who will hear this, hopefully, and get answers um, from what you've heard and seen. Because, like I said, we learn a lot of things from reading things and hearing things and seeing things to get through the day. Sometimes you take things day by day. I pretty much take things day by day. Right now it's Wednesday here. I'm not really thinking about Thursday yet because it's still Wednesday. The only time I usually think far ahead is like if I'm planning a vacation, because you can't really go on that just willy nilly. But other than that, I don't think about next week and next month really, or next year. I know it's coming, but I don't really like harp on it because I go day by day. Now that's just me and some other people I'm sure out there, but um, again, we're not clones. So thank you again, Ren. Thank you for being real and authentic, 1,000%. And I wish you continuous success. Just know you deserve all the good things that come to you because you've had a lot of bad. So you deserve all good things. I know you're humble and stuff like that, but it's okay for everything that you deserve, monetarily, spiritually, financially, mentally, all the things, all the good things, and then with TY. All right. So again, there's no voting here on these reaction type of things that we do because these are special. These are moments in time where again it's one love. Okay. So I'll end it with saying this is Tazzz with Tazzz N Philly. I want y'all to take it easy and keep it breezy, like my hat says. But for real, take it easy. All right. Thank you for watching.